All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Starting off a little bit early today. I actually got contacted by the Quartering yesterday. Apparently, I was eating into his particular streaming slot. And he asked me if I could move it around some, and I've decided to do that. He offered support on Rumble specifically, should I do so, specifically if I went after his stream. Today, I'm doing it beforehand because I don't know about that particular slot. I'm thinking about maybe an early morning slot. Like instead of making my 5 videos right off the bat, maybe an early morning stream. I'm thinking about an evening stream. I'm not 100% sure. I do know I'll be live streaming during all the main political events in the 24 election. But right now I'm just, again, I've only been back for a few weeks. I'm still organizing everything. I had to get the fucking Fidium set up, which again, he helped me on that. So another reason I'm going to give him deference. So I'm going to be trying to, do whatever I can. I'm going to try to have a more concrete schedule. It's just still up in the air. By next week, I'm hoping to have figured out exactly what I'm going to do. So I expect fewer people to tune in because they're not used to me going live at this particular time, which is fine. It's all good. Sumo Orange, could you elaborate on the new Trump Epstein doc? DeSimps running hard with it. Yeah, those were recanted claims against him and, oddly enough, Bill Clinton from that particular individual. And so, you know, they're trying to run with it, but there's nowhere to run, basically, because the claims are spurious. They were withdrawn. Sigil Stone, we meeting up at the Jew Tunnel Sticks? We're taking back our foreskins. Spread the word. Yes, indeed. The first news story of the day will be the secret tunnel network that was built underneath an Orthodox Shabbat, or a synagogue, actually, in Crown Heights. There is some strangeness going on. In fact, I had to write myself a goddamn note with all of the different explanations that have already been conjectured. Sort of depends on what source you're using, which means there's shenanigans going on. There's a cover-up going on. The NYPD sweeping in and arresting a number of people, actually. It's being condemned by other Jewish leaders, but some of them are like on board with it, and we're not sure where the tunnels lead. There are a hell of a lot of unknowns here, but they're already filling them in with cement, which means they're going to keep being unknowns, which makes me feel somewhat suspicious. I don't know what the fuck went on. So I'm basically just going to give you a laundry list of the explanations for what went on that I've seen so far, and then a brief rundown of that. We've got, of course, Michelle Obama with her statements. She was actually attacking Joe Biden the other day. This is leading to rumors that she has 24 ambitions. Basically, stand Biden down, force him to the side, and then she can run. We'll talk about that. Of course, I've made my opinion known that I do genuinely believe she's not likely to re-enter politics, but I could be wrong. It looks like there's at least a possibility. And then we've got the Civil War comments of Trump. These were conjectured yesterday, actually, on a super chat. But I wanted to flesh out my agreement with Trump generally on what he said. We have Fani Willis. That's the Fulton County DA who's currently going after Trump. It looks like a private attorney that she may have had an affair with or something like that is actually part of that case and is being paid according to new filings. Of course, they're saying, well, we're going to counterfile and we deny this, but you know, generally when you get caught out committing a crime, which is what that would actually equate to in that particular situation, you don't just admit to it up front if you're smart and you think there's any possibility of getting away with it. And of course, orange man bad, so the legal system will cover for you. We've got the Secretary of Defense, of course, Lloyd Austin. That case is deepening. There are increasing calls from the liberal media, mostly actually for Biden to shit can him. Biden came out the other day and said that he had no plans to do so, but he's being pressured to do so. And I think I know why. It's actually a wise decision by Biden's allies to try to coerce him into doing so. Also, we have a new study from Harvard, actually, somewhat discredited at Harvard, but their science department still works. Solid state lithium batteries appear to have been developed, stable ones, which would be effectively the holy grail of battery technology. And that would be pretty good. Solid state battery design charges in minutes last for thousands of cycles. That would be helpful for everyone that's addicted to their smartphone, by the way, and to ghost hunters, ironically, too. And we'll get to these Corto Maltese. What kind of Judaism is this? I can't use that term on a YouTube stream. Yeah, it's beyond me. I don't know exactly what went on. So mainly my section on that particular news story will be conjecture, and then just a detail of what little we know, and it is fairly little. Horowitz, Feinberg, and Horowitz. Do it. We could use the 666 o'clock news starting at 7:06 a.m. Eastern time. Possibly. Music and fiction. The usual Rands are pushing the Big Mike 24 narrative. Roger Stone, Peter Navarro, Greg Phillips, and others. It's little more than wish casting. I think that Donald Trump would beat Michelle Obama in a head-to-head. Baggage-free, supposedly. But then, you know, her husband happens to have plenty of baggage, and it would be a de facto proxy campaign by Obama for yet another term. This would be his fourth term. And yeah. Anyway, we'll get to the first news story because it's fascinating. This is from the Daily Mail. They've actually got a big write-up about this, but again, there might be shenanigans. Inside secret tunnel built by extremist Jewish students linking historic cleansing bath to Brooklyn synagogue that was only discovered when homeowner heard suspicious noises at night. The article here is a little bit goofy because that's not the entire story. One part of it says that the tunnel was found after a homeowner complained. And then another part of the same exact article says, no, construction workers were digging out for a water line and they broke through the tunnel. At another point, this particular article says, they may have broken through the sides of several other structures in the past. There's a denial by the woman's mikvah, that is their site that supposedly these students were trying to burrow into for one reason or another, that the tunnel even connects there. And the NYPD says that they don't know where the tunnels exactly go yet. They don't have an update on that. The number of unknowns here is massive, but they immediately called in a construction crew to start filling in the tunnels with cement. Then you had a number of the people inside attempting to attack the cement truck, actually. A riot broke out. A dozen people were arrested. The police were being howled at by most of the congregation there, even though the congregation's leader has condemned the so-called extremist students in so doing, in violating their synagogue. They subsequently, the so-called extremist students, again, everything here is kind of up in the air, broke through some wooden paneling to the side of the tunnel, which apparently was also adjacent to the main floor of the synagogue, not just below. And then they got inside and they were trying to stay in the tunnels to prevent them from being filled up with cement. Kind of a losing proposition when the NYPD is your opponent. Nothing about this story in any way, shape, or form makes sense. That's why you know that there's shenanigans going on. Something unsavory happened. We know it. Now, here are some of the explanations. I've got 6 of them. Ian, fill in if there are any others. The first thing that I saw is people were saying, of course, there was human trafficking or something rapey going on there. Part of the evidence being there was a mattress that was recovered. It appears to have some sort of stain on it that would be commensurate maybe with shit, maybe with piss, maybe with blood, maybe with menstrual fluid. We're not 100% sure exactly what was going on down there. And that's possible that there was some sort of rapey shit going on down there. Maybe these younger Jewish adherents, they take their girlfriends down there and they bang. Not sure why they would need an elaborate tunnel network to do so, but that's always a possibility. Number 2, this was the initial claim, and we have to be careful how we word this on YouTube, that it was to avoid some of New York's lockdown rules years ago with regards to religious congregations. Of course, they were limiting religious ceremonialism. And in an Orthodox tradition, some of those rules would have to be violated in order to be kosher, I suppose. The problem is that these tunnels appear to have effectively been built 6 months ago. So that's long after that period. So I think we can discount that claim. The third claim is that it was some of the young boys there, young men, they were tunneling underneath the synagogue in order to gain access to the women's quarters some distance away, several houses away. The idea was that they wanted to spy on them in their ritual bath because that's a thing in their community. The problem being, again, the woman's mikvah there has disclaimed any connection to the tunnel. They're saying that there's no connection there, and that actually it connects to an old men's dormitory or whatever the fuck you'd call it, over a little distance away, and that it doesn't connect to them at all, which would rather sully the explanation. The fourth is it's a korbanot, and that is that it was a ritual murder chamber, so to speak. This is generally regarded as blood libel. I would point out that with any other religion, if you talk about, ritualized rape or anything like that, nobody claims that there's some long-standing historical precedent of you lying. So I guess they would have to dig further. Somebody was explaining it on Twitter earlier that would be at the south side from the entrance and a layer down. So you'd have to tunnel further through the tunnel network in order to get to it, and that was a place where blood rituals were actually performed. Number 5, that it was a building ownership dispute. That is that the synagogue had prevailed over some other Jewish sect with regard or group or something. It's, again, not entirely clear. I'm doing my best to explain, but it's like, what the fuck is going on here? That there was a dispute over building ownership, and that another group, lost in court. And this was, I think, from the synagogue's actual founder. And that the other group was, I guess, for some unknown reason, trying to gain access to the synagogue in order to, I guess, secretly conduct their religious ceremonies or something of that matter. Kind of doubtful, considering the fact that if you look at the trash and shit that was down in the main, antechamber that they apparently dug there, it's full of, baby strollers and, again, soiled mattresses and weird shit like that, and stuff lying around everywhere. It doesn't appear commensurate with a group that was just doing construction work in order to sap or undermine the synagogue. And finally, that it was an unlicensed synagogue expansion operation by the people in the synagogue, which would kind of explain the anger of the constituency there towards the NYPD discovering this, of course, and that they were simply seeking to expand the synagogue. Now, this doesn't look like a synagogue expansion. It looks like a series of crawlway tunnels leading to one central chamber adjacent to the basement of the structure that may or may not adjoin other buildings, but we're not sure because the NYPD is cementing it in as we speak. We need answers. A thorough investigation, effectively, the filling in of the tunnels. Number 1 should be put on indefinite hold immediately. Number 2, people were extracting things from those tunnels. Some of the Jewish congregants, by the way, actually involved with this, potentially contaminating crime scene evidence, especially DNA, assuming that there was anything rapey going on down there. If you look at the videos, though, of them going into these tunnels, it's creepy as fuck. It looks like it's sort of like the basement scene from the really good movie Evil Dead. No, I don't mean the remake. I mean the one from the early 80s. Sort of looks like that. Underlit, kind of dank and weird, and kind of properly structured. At the very least, the synagogue didn't collapse in on itself because of the tunneling efforts. There's that. Maybe that's why they cemented it up, because gosh, shit, this building is going to fall over. The engineer just told us we have 30 minutes, so we better get started. I think it's more cover-up related than anything else. What I would like to see is some rich person come in, force a sale of the property, buy it up, and then excavate the whole site, honestly. Excavate the entire site like it's an archaeological zone and find out what goddamn happened, because clearly the New York State authorities and the NYPD are uninterested in even determining what's going on. Their official statement had to do with a group of extremists, so part of the congregation having views that they think that some rabbi that they have favor for is the Messiah, basically, that they were trying to, tunnel under the structure to gain access to it. But no investigation has actually taken place. Your investigation was a couple of hours of talking to a handful of congregants. That's basically what the NYPD is going on with their official statement. That worries me. That speaks again to a cover-up. And I pointed out my exclusive this morning when I talked about this issue in a little bit more detail, a little bit more flowery language. You'll have to go to Rumble or BitChute for that, by the way. YouTube users, you're going to have to go there because there are things that I can and cannot say with regards to this kind of issue on a YouTube live stream or video. Nothing about this in any way, shape, or form makes sense. Literally nothing. If this was unlicensed construction, why would there be like baby strollers and shit like that in the tunnel network? If it was for access to a separate outbuilding, why was that access not even investigated by the NYPD? Were they afraid the building would collapse on top of them or something? Well, search the local buildings then. Knock out a few walls. Get engineers, get an archaeologist in there with modern day equipment. They'll be able to tell you where the fucking tunnel connects to. They can do it from the sky. Probably they can hook up their things to a drone and fly it over. 10 minutes later, you know exactly where the tunnel network is. Oh, wait, you're filling it in as we speak. I don't know about that, dude. There's some sus shit going on here. Very sus. Let's see. More Killbot. Obama's first 2 terms sucked, but his 3rd term is shaping up to be the worst yet. And Trump is screwed again. Obama's 4th term will be apocalyptic. Agreed. Jones Johnson. Hey, Sticks, longtime viewer. Trump 2024. Harrison Bergeron. LA rooftop Koreans versus New York tunnel Jews. Fight. I think that being in a tunnel, you'd have an advantage. Stephen Nizek. Do DeSantis fans really not understand that this going this hard on defaming Trump vis-a-vis Epstein is going to have blowback on DeSantis in the upcoming primaries, or do they just not care anymore? They know that they've lost, so I think that they've stopped caring. At this point, it's just trying to stop Trump through TDS, because some of them do have it. Dutch Schaefer. Hey, Sticks, it's amazing how little I've heard about the Lloyd Austin scandal other than yourself reporting on it. I appreciate you doing so. Yeah, the only legacy media reporting on it is Fox, and they get all hyperbolic and weird about it. Rocky. Regarding plastics, what's the study on fountain plastic cups? Is it better to reuse a fountain cup or get a new one every time? Don't know. John Andrew, it was a Hamas tunnel. Yes, Hamas was trying to sap the synagogue and cause it to collapse. Dr. Heaven Cunt, looks like those Chinese organ harvesting tunnels. Yeah, again, if this were under like a Chinese, like a Confucian Institute, or under a mosque, or anything like that, everybody would be asking a million goddamn questions. Instead, I'm seeing relatively little from the legacy media right now. All I'm seeing is things on 4chan and Twitter. And, you know, for me and other content creators who are not beholden to corporate interests. Glib facsimile. What good reason is there for someone to build tunnels underneath New York City illegally? That's the thing, like, I don't know. We don't know. We have no answers, and we're probably not going to get them because they refuse to even investigate. It's going to be sort of like the Hunter Biden laptop thing all over again. Oh, there's nothing to see here, and we know that because we didn't investigate and found nothing. Joshin Sunyata, what are your thoughts on the psychedelic brain candy that is the Flechathon as a metaphor concept in its relation to the Bardo Thadoi, Tibetan BOTD, specific Book of the Dead, specifically the womb doors as conscience states? I don't know, actually. I've read part of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I'm basically familiar with the basic gist. I haven't delved into it fully, though, although I should. Thank you for the chat, though. Rocky, Fox News speculating Michelle will run. Yeah, we'll be talking about that in a moment. But yes, wrap up here. There are half a dozen or so different reasons speculated for the Jew tunnels under the synagogue there in Crown Heights in New York. But there's not going to be an investigation, apparently. They're just filling it in with cement to get rid of the tunnels. So the world may never know exactly what went on again unless some crazy philanthropist with a lot of money decides to buy up the adjacent properties and start excavating, or somebody gets an archaeological drone in to scan the ground. At least you'd probably be able to determine where the tunnel's connected to. How big are they? The NYPD never investigated that either. These tunnels could go on for blocks. How the fuck would we know? How the fuck would anyone know? Unless they run up against a subway line or sewer pipe or something like that and have to stop. I mean, technically speaking, you could dig them indefinitely. By the way, it must have taken an awful lot of money to structure the tunnels in such a way that the above structures did not collapse. So we're looking at an organized operation here. John Andrew. The tunnels were made illegally because the permit process is a bitch. Again, though, if you're just trying to expand the synagogue or something, why do the tunnels lead off far away, supposedly at least, from the synagogue? The Copper Owl. Who knew Chud spoke Hebrew? Shalom. BW. Do you think Dems will wait till the end of the primary season to superdelegate Biden out of there? There are rumors that Biden intends to stand down and then effectively choose his successor. And I've spoken of that, and it is a possibility. That could be the shenanigans that they've got in mind. It's even odds, though, as to whether it would work very well, because then a bunch of people that voted for Biden to be the candidate all of a sudden have to deal with someone else that they may not like. I don't know how wise the strategy is. Anyway, watch. Michelle Obama simultaneously bashes Joe Biden heading into 24 and pushes strong authoritarian impulses. Yes, if anything, she sounds much more authoritarian than goddamn Barack ever did. What's going to happen in this next election? I am terrified about what could possibly happen. Government does everything for us. Michelle Obama would be off her rocker, I think, to try to be the candidate. Because if this is sort of your initial pitch, like the foreshock to Michelle Obama 24, I can't imagine it'll go off so well. And Trump, I think, would berate her. I mean, he's immune to racism, sexism, because he's already been through that for the better part of a decade. So I don't know how much ammunition would be left for Michelle Obama to actually launch at him. And to remember, Trump is partially the result of the Obama administration's fuck-ups. Obama, I like seeing liberal commentators like, whoa, Obama was so well-liked and stuff. Okay, political scientists really love Obama. Sometimes they put him in the top 4 or 5 presidents that we've ever had. The people, though, by and large, towards the end, soured on Obama. And that's part of the reason why Trump, if Obama had been much more popular, Trump would never have been elected in 2016 if he had done a good job. The fact that somebody with his particular personality style, facing constant headwind from nonstop propaganda, could still manage to eke out a win over Hillary, weak as though admittedly she was as a candidate, was partially because of the Obama administration's economic policies and heavy concern with regulation. Michelle Obama is showing that she actually has even more tyrannical views than Barack ever did. You could expect, if she were president, wars. You could expect more taxes. You could expect more regulations, and probably a boring stagnation like you got with Barack Obama. Under Obama, one of the big problems was it was just fucking boring at times. There was no spiciness in the presidency. I mean, he did the brown sugar shuffle when he was being elected the first time around. He continued it occasionally for the first year or so, and then he just sort of settled down and disappeared into the woodwork, except for making occasional speeches. I don't think that the American people also want dynastic presidencies anymore. This is one reason why when people say, well, Don Jr., 28, it's not a good idea. People soured on the dynastic Clinton proposal. People had partially soured even on the George W. dynastic proposal, remembering how shitty his father did as president. But they elected him anyway. Not that it means much. In a 50-50 sum proposition, he managed to scrape by Al Gore because of a Supreme Court decision in Florida. Yeah, people do not like dynastic leadership. You know, that's why RFK Jr. has a problem. Some of the boomers fondly remember the Kennedy era. Okay, they might stump for him, but that's a diminishing proportion of the population. Give me a Roosevelt or something like that, preferably closer related to Teddy than to Franklin, and then we'll talk. Or somebody who's Jefferson's, great-great-great-great-great-grandchild or something like that. That's okay. By the way, they might very well be a black individual, so that would be hilarious. No, we don't need any more Obamas. And after Trump's gone, the Lord help the Republicans. If they rally around like Eric or Don Jr. or something like that, they'll have the same result. The Emperor's Champion. I don't see how Democrats can win 24 without so many shenanigans that it's obvious they're cheating, or populists stay home and don't vote. I would agree with that. Good facsimile. I think they're going to sub in Newsom. I can't think of any other candidate that meets the traditional view of selling normies on a liberal. Newsom would be a bad choice because he's already pissed away a lot of his credibility. I don't think that. I think he's on the top of the short list for people who run in 28. I don't think he's on the short list for potential future presidents. Also, he's from a far blue state, so he's been in an echo chamber for a while. Lord of the Waffle House. Shout out to Anton for the Sticks mug and biltong. Save me while working a case in the cold. Sticks, what are your thoughts on Mayorkas, I think you mean, admitting released migrant totals are way higher than reported? Yeah, the problem is the legacy media also doesn't report on that statement very much. You'll get it on Fox for the boomer audience, and you'll get it from independent content creators. So the CNN audience has no clue the statement was even made. Or they'll circle the wagons and they'll say, well, this is what he really meant. Yes, indeed, the number of migrants coming into the United States, illegals actually, plus asylum seekers that are technically migrants, is higher than you would normally count, because normally the count is based on encounters. Well, if you don't encounter that person because you don't see them crossing the border, that's a person who got into the country illegally, and you don't have any record of them. It's probably many millions of people, by the way. They can't starve you. Hello from upstate New York. Have some ducats before Biden gives it to an illegal alien or a cross-dresser in Ukraine. Well, thank you very much. By the way, actually, no, there's about 4,000 people watching. It's about the same as normal. So, yeah. And we're only 25 minutes in. Maybe it'll be more than normal. Maybe this should be my new slot. Maybe I should start going live and end at noon. Next news story. Opinion. Trump's comments about the Civil War are even worse than Nikki Haley's, by Dean Obadiah of CNN. Yeah. This is, by the way, actually a piece designed to help Nikki Haley. The legacy media clearly wants her to win New Hampshire, and they're crossing their fingers that she defeats Orange Man. They're hoping for Nikki Haley because, number one, she would lose in the general because she just would, because half of the Republicans would stay home. And number two, in the off chance she did something like Biden croaks during the general and she inexplicably wins, they've got a puppet. They've got a warmongering neocon puppet that they can control. And so they would have no problem with her presidency. It'd be a controlled opposition, conservative in name only, who likes the idea of limitless war, gender changes for kids, and thinks that you shouldn't say the word illegal because it's disrespectful. Yeah, Nikki Haley, the conservative candidate, by the way. Anyway, this is what he said. Describing the conflict, that is the Civil War, as so horrible but so fascinating, Trump declared at a campaign rally on Saturday that so many mistakes were made in the conduct of the war, which raged between 1861 and 65, claiming more than 600,000 lives, after secessionist states insisted on leaving the Union rather than ending the barbaric practice of owning black human beings as property. That was a tough one for our country, Trump said. That's a bit of an understatement, to be clear. He continued, see, there was something I think could have been negotiated, to be honest with you. I think you could have negotiated that. He later added, Abraham Lincoln, of course, if he negotiated it, you probably wouldn't even know who Abraham Lincoln was. One has to wonder, what exactly would Trump have wanted to see negotiated? What did he think was open for discussion? The options at that moment in history were slavery or war, as many historians have noted. They are, by the way, wrong in supposing that. Fort Sumter was a bit of a false flag, number one. Slavery was not the only thing at the heart of the debate, number two. We had already had a 3/5 compromise or 2/3 compromise. I can't remember which one is which in the founding of our country in order to bring enough states aboard to actually incept. And of course, slavery continued in some states and not in others. It was for the ability of effectively slaves were counted towards the population for voting and delegate purposes, while not themselves actually being recognized as citizens because they were enslaved at the time. I think that was the 3/5 compromise, if I remember correctly. But it was about more, it was also about economic issues, about tariffs and so forth. Slavery was one of the core issues. I would point out that slavery wasn't even abolished in the northern states entirely until well into the Civil War, and indeed for a couple of states thereafter through the ratification of the end of slavery as a constitutional amendment. Several states in the Union continued slavery well into the Civil War. By the way, the Emancipation Proclamation never freed a single northern slave. The northern states that did end slavery did so of their own accord or with the official end of slavery by constitutional amendment. Abraham Lincoln and others in the North generally were proponents of the Henry Clay model, which was black people, and this is their words, this is not my opinion. They said black people don't belong here because they've got their own continent. We take them, they formed Liberia, and they started expatriating them there. The slaves that came to the North were effectively offered a free ticket over to Liberia to go back to what the Northerners conceived of as their homeland. In the South, of course, slavery continued. Emancipation targeted their slaves particularly. The slaves, upon hearing this, they took over entire towns, actually, in order to sap the South of its economic capabilities. The fact is that the slave debate is nuanced and the Civil War is nuanced. The problem with weighing in on it as Nikki Haley originally did and as Trump has now done is that most people don't know that nuance. They don't understand the historical context of the Civil War and, by the way, what preceded it in the antebellum period. They don't know anything about it. Most school children are told effectively and explicitly, until they're older, they don't know anything beyond this. They're told Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, which he did not. The North fought the South over slavery, which initially it did not. And the South was full of a bunch of racists and every Confederate had a bunch of slaves, which is not true. None of the things that generally you are told in basic education on the Civil War's history is true. It's all false. It's literally revisionist bullshit. But the history books were written by the victors, which happened to be the Union. Instead of pointing to the nuanced arguments that were being made at the time, they decided to be reductionist. That is the truth. That's just the way that it happened. The South did plenty of crazy shit. And slavery was a brutal institution that, I mean, in an alternate history, the best possibility is that the United States was incepted with slavery being banned to begin with. Never would have been a civil war, never would have been a slave debate, et cetera, et cetera. It also would have helped with the white unemployment down south. You see, when you're competing with somebody who doesn't get a wage, you tend to be the loser. It held the South back in some ways, and it was slated for removal anyway because of mechanization. I have no doubt that if the South had won the Civil War, slavery would have been largely abolished in the Confederacy within 20 years, possibly leading, ironically, to a Confederacy Civil War. That is, that after prevailing over the Union, those states would disagree. Alabama maybe disagrees with Texas. South Carolina disagrees with Georgia over whether to retain slavery. Some people would say, well, it's just the way it is. Other people would say, well, there's a cotton gin now. What the fuck do we need slaves for? And so the crisis, probably there would have been a civil war in the Confederate States of America had the Confederacy successfully maintained itself. By the way, interesting. Somebody write a book of alternate history or something like that. That would be really weird. Can you imagine how weird it would be? How different history would be? Might be better, might be worse, might be about the same. There's no way to tell. Matt B, the 6-meter tunnel was not for COVID, but for travel between Messiah, Rebetzna's ritual bath, and synagogue. Used mattresses are common wall filler in New York City. Well, yeah, that's possible, but we don't know. John Andrew. If you're looking for a live time slot when you were abroad, the time slot connected between 8 and 9 a.m., sometimes within the 7 a.m. hour. Yeah, but the thing is, like, I'm hesitant to do that because I also like my morning routine. And also I tend to dig up news topics in the morning as well as in the evening. So I don't know exactly how that would work. Actually, I think more people might be tuned in now than normal. Yeah, it's a little bit higher than it was yesterday. Maybe it's because I'm talking about the synagogue tunnels or something like that. Next news story. New Fulton County DA Fani Willis paid her lover, private attorney Nathan Wade, $654,000 of taxpayer money since January 22 to act as special prosecutor in her case to get Trump. Wade then paid for lavish vacations he took with Willis using the Fulton County funds his firm received. Fani Willis directly authorized his compensation according to a new public filing. Now, this is an allegation. We know about the payment, but we don't know whether Fani Willis and Nathan Wade, again, chief prosecutor in the case, special prosecutor in the case, we don't know if they had an affair. That's just something that's been alleged. If it turns out, however, they did decide to hook up and do smoochy things, imagine that scene. You probably don't want to envision it visually. That would be a big conflict of interests, both over the payments and over the fact that these two are both acting in this particular case as regards to the Fulton County RICO case against Donald Trump. It could lead to a dismissal of the case. But you've got to prove it first. The filings give speculative evidence and say, well, we've got witnesses, we've got info, but it doesn't lay it out entirely. So we're going to see where that goes. It's believable. But it's not necessarily something that at this particular moment is proven. If it is, again, there will be a move for dismissal that may or may not pan out, because right now you got to understand, all of these cases have an enormous number of legal flaws in them. The cases themselves effectively should be ruled illegal, but there's nobody without TDS that's at the higher level to do that. And so these cases are being upheld perpetually, despite the fact that they are effectively nothing more than illegal kangaroo courts. For instance, with Alvin Bragg, his DA's office typically downgrades fraud charges from felony to misdemeanor, not the other way around. They deal with fraud that probably didn't even happen. Letitia James' case is based on effectively unofficial speculation about property evaluations, while again being artificially upgraded as far as the charges go, despite there being actually no legal claimant other than Letitia James. These cases, the Mar-a-Lago documents case, presidents take home classified material. Non-presidents have done the same. Biden, who was not president at the time that he possessed such documents, he had been former VP. Mike Pence did the same thing. They never got investigated, now did they? These cases are all bullshit. The problem is you have to have someone with the legal authority to decree them bullshit and then shut the case down. Wolf. Look up Harry Turtledove. He has books about if the South won. 9-book series called The Souther Victory. Interesting. Remington, look up, oh yeah, you're mentioning him too. Look up Harry Turtledove. He writes alternate history fictional stories, historical periods like World War II and the discovery of the New World and more. That sounds definitely down my aisle. Harry Turtledove, just a second. Might get the whole fucking collection. Harry Turtledove, Hot War. Harry Turtledove bibliography. Ah, cool. Probably not woke material, so yeah. Well, let's see. Juking Ox. I broke you in the canyon. I drowned you in the lake. You a snake that I would trample. Only thing I'd not embrace. Viper 1074. Sticks at Viper 1074 on Twitter. Messaged you a little bit ago. I'd like to send you a package of coffee from my roastery in Grand Rapids now that you're back in the U.S. Also, is Iowa caucus a winner? 50+1. I think that Trump wins the Iowa caucus. Yeah, I think he comes in below 50 in the end because it's usually a last-minute swing. And yeah, I'll DM me again because it might have gotten bumped down by the incessant number of news tips that I get. I'm not complaining about news tips, but you know, sometimes they bury stuff. Swamp Donkey, did you see the soiled beds that came out of those New York tunnels? Why did they try and seal them up so quick? That's what we're trying to figure out and probably won't. By the way, there is a link pinned at the top on YouTube if you're watching there, and cross-platform link in the description to my books blog. There's some goodies there available for everyone. Hundreds of editions of old volumes that I have created on everything from the occult, black magic, demonology, all the way up through Christian prayer and ritual, Theosophy, the Freemasons, secret societies, herbal medicine, astrology, fortune telling, and basically everything else paranormal or occult or spiritual under the sun, including some primary source documents as well. By the way, there are also a couple of links in the description for merch. Pumpkin Fire Crafts, who is also in chat over on Rumble. That's an eBay page. You can get all sorts of things. You can get bookmarks. You can get necklaces, amulets, I like to call them because amulet's cooler than necklace. As well as keychains, belt chains, and so forth. And also Anton's in Roanoke, Texas, landofbiltong.com. You can get some very, very delicious meat from his site. You can also get some Sticks merch there as well. There are mugs, there are tumblers, there are shirts. I've got one in the other room. Although one thing is, like, the cat snuggled me, and so now I need to do the sticky roll thing to it before I can wear it on camera again. People think that I turn into a Therian or something like that. Rodney, when you have control of the judiciary, not much else matters. Yeah, exactly. You can legalize your own abuse very easily. Grim Metals, currently working on an order for 50 Trump 2024 zinc bars. This isn't the first request I've got to make Trump products. Where are the Biden fans? Yeah, there are none. Try finding one. Dat Pie over there. Oh, geez, man. The Western Long Island regions of Kings and of Queens counties are always up to some goofy shit. Watch them try to build up a canal next. Yeah, maybe. Aquatic Judaism. Right now we've got subterranean Judaism. They need to form a navy. Next news story. Why the Secretary of Defense's mysterious disappearance means he needs to go. There is some ass covering here. Lloyd Austin was effectively incapacitated. He was hospitalized. He's apologized for not telling Biden that I was sick. For 3 days, Biden was unaware that his Secretary of Defense was incapacitated. Now, here's the thing. Lloyd Austin was really sick. In fact, I think he's still in the ICU now. he probably didn't have the time or the energy to send a text to Joe and say, hey, Joe, I'm in the hospital, so the deputy's filling in for me for, the foreseeable future. It would have fallen to somebody lower down than him. Whoever it was, clearly the deputy, etc., were all incompetent and probably thought that one other person had contacted Joe and made him aware of the fact that Lloyd Austin was sick. Probably it was like a buck passing thing. You know how, like, in an office setting or something, everyone assumes that somebody else has already done the job. So everyone assumes that somebody else already got the memo to fax the important document over to HQ or something like that. And so it never gets faxed because everyone's convinced that the job's already been done. This is Biden's problem, though. At the end of the day, one would think that Joe Biden would be in regular conversation with the Secretary of Defense when we're currently mired in Ukraine and in Gaza, and we're talking about Taiwan and Guyana and all of these other things. One would assume that he would be in fairly regular contact. Should he have been in contact with the deputy at some point, he should have put two and two together and said, why the fuck is the deputy head of this agency currently texting with me? Where's Lloyd Austin? What's he up to? Is he in the bathroom? Has he been in the bathroom for 3 days? This is getting a little fishy, but he didn't. He is the one primarily responsible for that bureaucratic function. The buck stops here. The reason why the legacy media is saying fire Lloyd Austin is because they want Biden to cover his ass, because this is a major scandal within the Defense Department. That's the long and short of it. They realize, and Biden probably doesn't realize this, they realize that Biden will take full blame if he doesn't shit can him, because it makes it look like he tolerates a person who has already apologized and said, well, my bad. That's more, if it was the Department of Agriculture or Fish and Game or something, nobody would care. They would chuckle and they would move on. The Defense Department's a little bit more important now, isn't it, as far as, maintaining national security and not getting like nuked or invaded or something like that. It is a big problem. Biden's nuts to not fire him. And these legacy media hit pieces on Lloyd Austin are effectively to try to force Biden's hand, to force him to do something politically expedient that he is uninclined to do and has stated he is uninclined to do. And in the end, he might do that. Alex Jones sticks to a gaming stream playing Skyrim. I'd like to do something like that sometime, but I never have the time. Peyton Walter, do 6 a.m. Albuquerque time for live stream. Maybe a poll to see what works best for everyone. That would be like 4 a.m. local time here, and there's no way that I can pull that off. Number one, I'd have to completely move my setup because otherwise I'm inconveniencing sleeping people. Number two, at that hour, I'm deep asleep as well. I get sleepy too. What can I say? Let's see. Ooh. Yeah, the tunnels news story, definitely the big news of the day, though. I mean, all of this other stuff is less interesting than talking about secret tunnels leading to the woman's mikvah or to a rape chamber or to another building or to try to sap the synagogue. And I don't know. I still don't know. Final news story. Solid-state battery design charges in minutes and lasts for thousands of cycles. Researchers from the Harvard John A. Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences have developed a new lithium metal battery that can be charged and discharged at least 6,000 times, more than any other pouch battery cell, and can be recharged in a matter of minutes. If indeed this turns out to be true, that would be a game changer for battery usage for smaller appliances. And if it scales, if they could, use it for something bigger, hey, finally you've got a battery that's actually efficient enough to be workable. Right now we don't. Batteries used to start fuel engines and stuff like that are used ubiquitously. We use them for flashlights and for things like that. But batteries really, as they're generally incepted, aren't that efficient. They're not that efficient. They last a long time. They require special disposal. And they don't charge in many cases very quickly either. They're claiming this. The research not only describes a new way to make solid-state batteries with a lithium metal anode, but also offers new understanding into materials used for these potentially revolutionary batteries. Again, we're hoping that it pans out and is cost-effective. Lithium metal anode batteries are considered the holy grail of batteries because they have 10 times the capacity of commercial graphite anodes and drastically increase the driving distance of electric vehicles. Now, I don't give a shit about that application, but I do give a shit about the fact that they can hold their charge better and longer and charge faster. And that application in everything else that batteries are used in would be game-changing. said Jin Li, Associate Professor of Materials Science at SEAS and senior author of the paper, Our Research is an Important Step Forward Toward More Practical Solid-State Batteries for Industrial and Commercial Applications. Keep in mind that batteries are important. They're used for a shit ton of purposes. It would be nice to have like a charging pack that charges 10 times faster and holds 10 times the charge or something like that. Smartphone users of the world, of which I am not generally one, rejoice. 99% of the population would be cheering. One of the biggest challenges in the design of these batteries is the formation of dendrites on the surface of the anode. How sad. These structures grow like roots into the electrolyte and pierce the barrier separating the anode and cathode, causing the battery to short or even catch fire. That'd probably be a little bit of a problem. In 2021, the team offered one way to deal with dendrites by designing a multi-layer battery that sandwiched different materials of varying stabilities beneath the anode and cathode. So sort of like that layered armor they use on tanks, I guess. The multi-layer, multi-material design prevented the penetration of lithium dendrites, not by stopping them altogether, but rather by controlling and containing them. That'd be pretty cool now, wouldn't it? So in science news of the day, we're hoping that their claims are true, capable of being recreated and capable of being cost effective. If that's the case, then we've finally got a new design of battery for the first time in a long time that actually shows real promise. Vault of the Future, thoughts on Miami Mall aliens? Lol. I watched that video and I never actually saw exactly what's being referred to. I'm clueless on that. Medic Babe 21D. It's my birthday. Can I get a shout out for 57 trips around the sun from the man himself? Thanks. Hashtag Clank Nation. Yes, consider this a shout out. Happy birthday. May it be joyous and may you have many more. So yeah. We'll go back to the tunnels thing maybe and talk about the synagogue tunnels again. For those of you that did not see the original story as reported here because you came later to the stream, in Crown Heights in New York, they discovered a tunnel complex underneath a synagogue. And every aspect of the story is still completely unknown other than we've got some video footage inside and it's creepy as hell and looks like a rape dungeon in a horror movie or something from Saw or Silence of the Lambs. It looks like Buffalo Bill dug the goddamn tunnels. And we have a list of 6 possible explanations as to what was happening down there. Human trafficking, lockdown avoidance, which we know we can score that one out because the tunnels are too new for them to coincide with that. A group of boys spying on the girls' mitzvah, that is breaking through the wall and then peeking in on them taking their baths and stuff. A korbanot murder chamber, a building ownership dispute, or unlicensed synagogue expansion. We have no clue because the NYPD has already cemented in the tunnels and locked all of the evidence in there. What I suggest, again, is that somebody who knows an archaeologist who has good ground scanning equipment or a good engineer needs to hook that shit to a drone or two and fly it over the general vicinity. And you should be able to see, I guess, below ground enough to see where the tunnels probably lead to. Because we don't even know that. The NYPD can't even confirm where the end of the tunnel is or how many tunnels there are. This could be a major complex. It could be like literally a Hamas tunnel. And we wouldn't even know because they don't appear to be interested in actually investigating. BW, I wonder why they don't seem to put much money in longevity research. Well, they do, but the problem is trying to make people live longer is a losing proposition unless you fully understand things like Alzheimer's disease. Let's say that you get people who can live to 120. How many of those people are still going to be mentally functional at that point? 10% of them, something like that. And living longer also comes with physical breakdown. If you're talking about making sure the body is rejuvenated and more youthful and functions better, I fully support that. But you still have to fix for cognitive decline. And it may be impossible for us to do anything about it. Maybe cybernetics or something like that. You know, you sort of have a electronic copy of your brain starts to like go, and so you just recopy it or something, computer style. I don't know. Mutilation tunnels, says Wilmar. Okay, that's number 7. Although they didn't find any human remains or anything in them, they did find other creepy shit. There was a stroller, a high chair, a soiled mattress, or multiple. It's not quite clear exactly. And the tunnels, a lot of them, they look like maybe a 3x3 sort of crawl space or maybe a 4x4. I can't tell from some of the pictures I'm seeing. And yeah, BW, I meant younger, longer. The best way to stay younger longer is through a healthy lifestyle, which normally means forsaking the healthy living knowledge of the people that you see on TV. They used to say that coffee was terrible for you, caused strokes. Then they realized that that research didn't fix for cigarette smoking, and oh, actually, it's vasoprotective. Whoops. Sugar used to be peddled as a cure-all. It used to be considered medicine. Probably back when people were malnourished, having that extra caloric intake probably was a good thing. But, you know, these days, most people have too much caloric intake. Mike the Wapo, oh, hope all is well, sir. Find that new gun yet? No, the gun stores are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, actually, here. So I'll go out tomorrow if I have the energy and time to do so. Baron Von Blair, pineapple pizza. I agree with you. Had pizza yesterday, but there's no pineapple on it. It was a mix of different things. It was partially homemade. My parents actually made the sauce, and Mom mixed the crust up. It's really good, actually. The little crust packets, it's like, I don't know, some sort of yeast that it's specifically for pizza crust. Next time, though, I'm going to make the sauce myself because I add like probably twice as much basil. And I also like it more rough. Like I like there to be some chunkiness to it. I know most people like a really smooth pizza sauce. I like it to be a bit more hearty. And I put all sorts of other shit in it like zucchini too. High pot thesis. Was Cartman right about the Jew gold? I don't think I can answer that on a YouTube live stream. Anyway, I'm going to go offline. I thank you to the almost 4,500 people who watched live. I'm going to get my shit together as far as when the time slot is that I'm going to be live streaming probably next week. Right now, I've still got a bunch of other stuff that I've got to do. I will, of course, go live again tomorrow, and I may or may not have the energy to do the Trump town hall reaction video. I'll go live for Iowa and New Hampshire and stuff. As far as the town hall, though, I'm thinking, okay, it's kind of important, but at the same time, so is sleep. And I don't know. I'll see exactly what happens. So, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow with more news and maybe more updates about the synagogue tunnels, because that's just creepy as fucking fuck. That's about all. Peace out.